Hi, good evening. This video is on page 59 of our notebook, and this is for parallel lines cut by a transversal. If you guys can just add a little S right here for lines, that would be great. Thank you. All right, so a few things about this picture. So first of all, line R and line S are both parallel to each other. Line T cuts through both, and this is called a transversal, and we'll talk about that in a minute. There are 8 angles that are formed when this happens. 4 angles are congruent to each other, and the other 4 angles are congruent to each other, and we'll determine which ones are the same and which ones are different. All right, so let's talk about parallel lines first. So parallel lines are lines that will never intersect and are equidistant from each other. It means they always stay the same distance away. Transversal is a line that passes through 2 or more lines, so line T is a transversal. I'm going to zoom this in just a little bit. Sorry about that. Congruent just means that angles that have the same measure. And a conjecture is a conclusion based on something observed. Okay? So we're going to use some of these words down below. So using what we already know about supplementary and vertical angles, we're going to decide the following. So which angles are vertical? And I'm going to use 2 different colors. So for example, 1 and 3 are vertical to each other. 5 and 7 are also vertical to one another. And then 2 and 4 are vertical pairs or vertical angles. And then 6 and 8 are also vertical. Okay. So what we could say about vertical angles that we know from yesterday's notes is that means that 1 and 3 are congruent. So angle 1 is congruent to angle 3. Angle 5 is congruent to angle 7. And I do want to just look up really quickly and make sure I'm giving you guys the right symbol for congruence. Yep, it is so it's an equal sign with like a little tilde up top, and it just means to be equal to one another. And then angles 2 and 4 are vertical. So angle 2 is congruent to angle 4, and then angle 6 is congruent to angle 8. And that's information that we learned yesterday. All right, so which angles do you think are supplementary? Remember, supplementary are 2 angles that add to be 180 degrees. So let's look at some of these. We're not going to name them all, but we can name some of them. So I know 1 and 2 form a straight line, so therefore they are supplementary. So angle 1 plus angle 2 adds to be 180 degrees, because that's what it means to be supplementary. Angle 3 and 4 are also supplementary. And then I'm going to look at it sideways. Again, there are more than what we're going to name, but that's okay. Angle 5 and 8 create a line, so those are supplementary. And angle 6 and 7. Okay. So we've talked about vertical pairs, and now we've talked about supplementary angles. Now we're going to kind of discuss, what can happen if we know that angle 1 is 50. So if we know that angle 1 is 50, then we know that angle 3 is also 50. If we know that angle 1 is 50, then we know that angle 2 has to be 130 because they're supplementary. Well, if 2 is 130, then 4 has to also be 130. Okay. Now to get these guys, they are literally the replica of what happened up here. So 1 actually matches with 5. So 5 is also 50, so is 7. And we're going to learn about this in just a second. And then 6 and 8 are also 130. Okay? So you see that there are 4 identical angles created. So 50, 50, 50, and 50. And then 130, 130, 130, and 130, which is what we said up here when you had 2 parallel lines cut by a transversal. All right, so let's talk about some more vocabulary. So linear pair, which is actually what we talked about right here, we just didn't use that word. Linear pair are two or more angles whose sum is 180 and they form a straight line. And then that means that they are supplementary. So for example, 1 and 2 form a linear pair, therefore they are supplementary. Okay. Corresponding angles mean angles that occupy the same relative position to each intersection where a straight line crosses two others. If two lines are parallel, then the corresponding angles are congruent. What this means is, if you look at this picture and you pretend like this is a classroom, and you look at this picture and you pretend like this is a classroom, the ones that are in the same corner as each other are going to be corresponding. So for example, 1 matches with 5. Okay, so those are corresponding. 1 corresponds to 5 because they're in the same relative position. All right, so that means that 2 must correspond to 6. Okay, and so if 2 corresponds to 6, it means that they also are congruent because they have the same angle measure. Okay, so it's almost like taking these 4 and picking them up and just putting them right here. So taking what we just learned here, let's read this. So let's look at the figure above and let's talk about this. So angles 1 and 2, are they a linear pair or are they corresponding? So 1 and 2, those are a linear pair. So let's write that down. Angles 1 and 4, well, 1 to 4, that's also another linear pair. Angles 6 and 7, right here, that's also another linear pair. So actually, all 3 of these are linear pairs. And then all of these are congruent, or are they supplementary? They are supplementary because they are a linear pair. Okay. Now we're going to look at this question. Which of the following are not corresponding? So 1 and 5. Well, we already looked at a picture. 1 and 5 are corresponding, so let's cross that out. 4 and 8. 4 is in the same corner as 8. I agree, so that's corresponding, so let's cross that out. 3 and 6. Nope, because 3 is in the bottom right and 6 is in the top right. So I know that that probably is going to be my answer, but let's check D. 2 and 6, those are in the same corner, so those are corresponding, so C has to be the one that is not corresponding. All right, so we're done with the front. Now we're going to go to the inside, which is a few more notes, and then you're going to work on the rest of it on your own. All right, so some more words that we need to learn. Alternate interior angles. So it's a pair of angles on opposite sides of a transversal, but inside the 2 parallel lines, and they are congruent. So I'm going to show you with my my pink pen. So 4 and 6 are alternate interior. Another pair of alternate interiors are 3 and 5. And again, using different colors is going to be really, really helpful in this unit. Okay. Now, just FYI, if it's alternate exterior, it just means they're outside the parallel line. So for example, 1 and 7 would be alternate exterior, and 2 and 8 would be alternate exterior. Okay. All right. Same side interior is a pair of angles on the same side of the transversal, but inside the parallel lines. They are supplementary. So for example, 3 is a same side interior with 6, which means that if I add angle 3 with angle 6, it gives me 180 degrees because they're the same side of the transversal inside the parallel lines. If I take the angle measure of 4 and I take the angle measure of 5, when I add those together, it would give me 180 because same side interior are supplementary. And again, if it said same side exterior, it just means they're on the outside. And again, those are supplementary as well. Okay. All right. So what you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and use the information you know, and you're going to fill in the remainder of these items. Some of these get a little bit more challenging. For example, down here, you start using some algebra, some expressions. So if, let me kind of do this one with you actually. So it says angle 3 is 2x plus 1. So here's angle 3. And then angle 5 is 4x minus 1. Well, we know 3x, or we know angle 3 and angle 5 are alternate interior, and alternate interior are congruent, and congruent means to be equal. So angle 3 actually equals angle 5. So I'm going to write that. Angle 3 equals angle 5. Well, if I know that, then what I could do is I could take this expression and fill it in right here. And then take this expression and fill it in right here. And then I can use that to find my value of x. So it's just a two-step equation. So subtract 2x, actually it's a three-step equation. Subtract 2x, 1 equals 2x minus 1, add 1 to both sides, add 1 to both sides. So 2 is equal to 2x, so therefore x has to be 1. Okay? So what I did was I used my skills of knowing alternate interior for this problem, and then I used my equation skills to then solve for the value of x. And you'll do the same thing for these problems down here as well. Then you've got these questions over here. Now I've already done 4 of them for you. So the rules go like this. They want you to find each angle measure A through N. Okay, you've got to do it based on just, make some conjectures, make some rules about what's related. So for example, A I found was 22, and the reason why I found that this was 22 is because a triangle has 180 degrees inside, so 40 plus 118 plus 22 gives me 180. And then my answer down here tells me that, 22 degrees because a triangle's sum is 180 degrees. Then if I know that this is 22, then I can figure out that this is actually going to be 68 because this makes a complementary pair of angles because it makes 90 degrees. So then down here I said 68 degrees because angle A and angle B are complementary. Then if I know that this, so then I go back over here to C, and if I know that this is 40, then I know this has to be 50, again, because they are complementary. And then I jump down here to D, because I know that D and 118 make a linear pair, and linear pairs are supplementary. So 62 plus 118 gives me 180. So again, there's my reason right here. So you're going to find the rest of these E through N, and then you're going to write your reasons right here, and then answer some reflection questions. So were there any angles that seemed easier to find? Were there any angles that seemed harder to find? And then what vocabulary words were you using to describe them? So some vocabulary words I've already used: complementary, linear pairs, supplementary, etc. So make sure that you answer all of these, and good luck. Ask me tomorrow any questions that you might still have, and then we'll go over this tomorrow in class. All right, have a great evening, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.